welcome to the Parrish IT Podcast. We have another special guest this week.
We do. We'd like to welcome your VDC manager, Travis Disbro. Travis, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks,
Glad
Travis.
to be here.
So, VDC, we talked about VDC services at the company meeting last week and about our core services. So, why don't you just give us a brief overview of our core services?
So we distributed that document, and these are kind of, I wanted it to be things that people are already doing every day. So kind of like we said at the meeting, I'm a support service for everybody here. So I wanted to try to, I guess, put in a few examples of things we've done. These are all examples of things that we've done here, mostly out of the Roswell office. So trying to get some more awareness for those things. Did you want to kind of go through each one of them, or?
Yeah, well, let's just start at the top from your handout and talk about model creation. Most people, when they think of VDC, well, let's back up. VDC, what does VDC stand for?
Virtual Design and Construction.
Oh, so that's not the thing you take penicillin for.
Oh no,
Okay.
No,
it's not.
no.
No.
We
I'm actually allergic to penicillin. There's a fun fact.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I am too.
Really?
I am.
I didn't, man.
We VDC, a lot of times people think of BIM, Building Information Modeling, and modeling being the first part of that. So model creation is the first service. So talk about model creation.
Yeah, so what I wanted to highlight there was just that, I know a lot of our design teams are not producing models in 3D, where if they were, we can utilize that data that already exists. But if not, I put an example here. This was for a proposal and an interview that we did, but we have the ability to go create essentially from scratch whatever we need to for visualization, if it makes sense. This one was a pretty large school. Just found, I think we had one PDF of what the floor plan looked like, and did some research online. Found it was kind of a prototype school, so was able to. You can see the steel, brick foundations, windows, a lot of different things. I was able to go in there and do to have, something we can talk about and show in the proposal. So just wanted to let people know that just because your architect or engineer isn't drawing in 3D doesn't mean that we're not capable of helping with the service.
That's impressive, Travis. How long does it take you to do something like that?
That one was pretty big, and like I said, since it was completely from scratch, that was probably a couple days
Okay.
of work. But it's that had site work to it. It's got all the foundations. It's got steel. It's got, like I said, skin components to it. So that was a pretty high level of detail for that one.
Still a lot faster than you're going to get any detail from engineers and architects.
Right. A lot of them, we've had issues with, they're just not willing to share the information for whatever reason, or they're just not capable in-house of doing it.
So a minute ago I said BIM, Building Information Model. So now you have a model. The first part of that is building information. So your second item is quantity takeoff.
Right.
So you have a model, you can get information from it. Talk to us a little bit about that, about quantity takeoff.
Yeah, so each element has some, like you said, information to it, some intelligence. So as I was creating this one, we're able to pull things like brick square footages or cubic yards of concrete. We can build all those things into the individual components. And for QTO, this is actually the example here is from Ronald McDonald House. That was one that we did get from the architect and had a ton of information in it. So we're able to, instead of doing manual takeoffs in on screen or Bluebeam, things like that, we can essentially run some reports of just asking what is in the model of a specific item. So if we wanted to know, like I said, square footage of brick, or the example here was actually windows. We wanted to get counts and sizes for windows. I was helping Jay with this. And, if there's not, this has some unique ins and outs to the shape of the building. So if there's not a elevation, or you maybe didn't check every floor plan that you're supposed to find all the windows, you may miss a few things where if you run the report out of exactly the data that's in the model, it's going to give you everything that's in there.
Gotcha.
So I went through that with Jay, and we were able to find a couple where maybe they didn't have a great elevation. This one, you know, in the top you can see 3 windows, but there's actually 6. So just trying
Yeah,
to help
so
back
so
check quantities.
our viewers can't see it, but you know, Travis is talking about traditional elevations for, you know, the northwest, southeast traditional elevations. But with a model, you can spin it around, and if you got a 45 or, you know, a piece that jets out in front of something, you can really get in there and see the actual pieces and parts of every elevation, every nook and turn in the building.
And that could make for a huge difference in estimating. I
Right.
mean, if you're missing, in this example, it's just 3 windows, but I mean, that could be really significant.
Yeah, this image was just 3. I want to say it was somewhere between originally when we did this, Jay and I were off by 12, 15, something like that.
Wow.
And this isn't a huge building,
Yeah.
so if you think about scaling that over larger projects.
All right, so continuing on, the next core service is site logistics. Um, help with laying out the site. Give us just a brief description of what you can do there using VDC services.
Yeah, so one of the things that I try to do was for in Bluebeam. I know a lot of people are using Bluebeam. I did create a toolkit for site logistics, which basically gives you all the common components you might be using. You know, we're going to have fence, we're going to have dumpsters, we're going to have all those sorts of things on all of our jobs, and try to just essentially create a one-stop shop that people can use to create their basic startup kind of site logistics that everybody will have. And then to take that a step further, on the example we showed, there's a couple other tools. This one I did in a program called InfraWorks, but it gives you more of a 3D perspective of, this is a college campus, Middle Georgia State. Gives you a real good idea of what exactly it's going to look like in 3D, and you're able to kind of spin that around. We use these for interviews, proposals, things like that, that get a little more detailed and flashy, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, and as far as the proposal process or the business development piece of that, you actually have, instead of just a flat um, laid out color grid of things, you've got a 3D model of the orientation of the site. So that's pretty cool for the business development proposal side of it. So the owner can really get a better visualized idea of what's going on.
Right.
All right, so continuing along the core services, VDC core services, coordination. Let's talk about coordination.
Yeah, so this one, the image here is of, I think a lot of people think of clash detection, that gets thrown around a lot. This image is really of clash detection. That, I guess, what I wanted to get across was that the process of clash detection doesn't have to be um, overly complicated, or just like the rest of these services, everything is scalable. So whether you're in a very small interior renovation, or you're building a ground up 70-80 million dollar school, there's always something that we can provide, that can help in specific areas. So this is just an example of, at the Howard School, we've got an existing building, very old building, with a lot of unique structural challenges to overcome. So deep beams from parts of the building that got added onto, and lots of different things to fight over the typical kind of overhead coordination. So this picture was just an area where we had to kind of go up and down to get some duct work and a lot of other MEP services to fit above the ceiling. And we use this a lot to even help the design team understand why we needed to lower ceilings in places and add bulkheads, because there were just those structural elements that they didn't account for in their original design, that we were able to help show them in 3D using the models.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this drawing, and basically it's showing a beam with the duct going down, like a loop down around the beam, then back up. It's also got plumbing looping around the ductwork because of the beam, and then you got a drop ceiling look, area because of the beam and the duct work.
What I see is
So,
another example of savings.
yeah.
You've got a cost savings there because you identify it, or you're able to identify it earlier and work around it instead of the two clashing on site during construction.
Right. Yeah, nobody likes to do something twice, so try to help identify some of these areas for the subs to know, hey, we've got an issue coming up. Try to talk about it in our weekly MEP coordination meetings on site and get ahead of it. So yeah, you're not sitting out there in the field saying, what do I do? This doesn't work.
Yeah. And I mean, this is great and when it's an existing building and you're working around existing conditions, but the same thing can be said for a new school. If you coordinate the MEP prior to actually building it, a lot of time and money can be saved by knowing where we're putting ductwork and how it interferes with plumbing and everything.
Right.
Next on the list is construction phasing. I'll talk about construction phasing.
Sure. So this include an example of this was a new school. This is actually King Springs for Cobb County, and they have an existing facility that they want to eventually demo, but in the process, would be building a new school kind of next to where their facility is now, and it happened to land directly on top of their existing bus loop. So they they wanted a plan, and this was really for us is again pre-construction services only. So they're trying to tee this up to go hard bid, and they're trying to find, and we're trying to help identify all the kind of gotchas that they may run into. So they wanted us to kind of show them their plan or our plan, how we could go maintain the bus loop that they have to run their facility while we build this new one, and what that's going to look like in the different stages of construction. So we created some the visuals you see here, and you can kind of see the path of what their buses are doing. Day one, the facility up top, then an intermediate phase as we're building that new school there, what that looks like, and then kind of the final condition. So just able to visually show them because it's not in this was in 3D as well, so we can kind of take whatever angle they want and show it to them from whether you're standing at the front door of the school or the entry from the road.
Yeah, and I remember on this one, we'd talked about, you and I separately, about um, them being able to allow for deliveries, not just the bus loop, but it helped identify the problem. The model and the phasing helped identify the problem of where you're going to drop off um, food items, big items, how you're going to handle that, and it kind of changed the phasing to accommodate for that as well.
Right. Yeah, we actually looked at where their existing deliveries are coming in. We kind of proposed rephasing some of the school and when we were able to do part of that new building because of how close that was. So we said if it was already going to be a phased construction of that new building. We said if you can leave this piece of the building to phase two, you'll be able to get your food deliveries in, and you won't have to worry about that tight congestion there. So that was another kind of success from that.
You could use this for security and separation too, to show the owners how you're going to keep the separation between the construction and.
Right. Yeah, any kind of intermediate phase that, like I said, visually, sometimes it's hard to see just on a 2D plan of, you see a little dotted line that's supposed to be a fence or whatever it is, but until you see it in 3D and, it's hard to grasp sometimes.
All right, and the sixth item on our VDC core services for Parrish is visual communication.
Yeah, that kind of goes right along with what we were just talking about for phasing. Sometimes I think for a lot of us, you know what certain details look like, and you can kind of picture it in your head. If you're looking at a 2D detail on a drawing, you kind of already know how to build it, and you can picture exactly what that looks like. And the example I put on here is kind of to kind of speaking to that. Just keep in mind who your audience is, and if your owner has never been around construction or they don't really understand it the same way you do, a 3D representation of what you're talking about can go a long way to help them understand exactly what that is, as opposed to just a 2D section cut.
I would say along those lines, a lot of your laborers, yeah, you've got sophisticated subcontractors that have seen it before, but some of the laborers could benefit from a more uh, virtual detail that really explains what's going on as opposed to just 2D flat
Right.
details.
Yeah, a virtual mock-up is another thing that isn't exactly. I guess it could be this really. Yeah, if you have a constructability issue, something that needs to be built a specific way that you want to communicate to the subs, or it's just complicated. Maybe the owner doesn't understand and they ask you to, teach me what we're doing maybe it's a change order, before I agree to go do this. Why is this better than what I'm already paying for? Or whatever the case may be, you can build a virtual kind of mock-up of what that's going to be and see it before you go put it in place in the field.
All right, so last part of this podcast is the tools. I know there's a couple things people are using. Let's just talk about a couple of the tools. You mentioned Bluebeam for site logistics. Um, what about pre-construction tools? What tools can the pre-construction department use?
Yeah, I mean, Bluebeam's one of them. I think a lot of people are using on screen. You can use Bluebeam for 2D and 3D takeoffs. Do a lot of reporting out of there too. But for the example we showed, there's and for a lot of these, really, there's free viewers that anybody can go and download and see a lot of this information that we've been talking about. It's not just isolated to, licenses on my computer. You're able to download things like Navisworks, and that'll show you what we're talking about, the 3D building models, and you can get a lot of the information and quantity things out of there as well. For CAD files, if anybody gets a CAD file, to just be able to open and look at that, you don't necessarily need to edit it or make changes to it, but you just want to see what a sub sent you. There's a link for a free viewer for that everybody can download as well, that we can link to.
That's good information. Somebody asked me just a few weeks ago about CAD files. I'm like, I don't think we can open CAD files. And
Right.
Craig, you weren't here, and Travis, I didn't think to call you. And so where will our listeners go to find these resources where they can, will there be links?
We can put them in the links on the
Cool.
podcast
Cool.
for downloading and accessing the viewers. Travis, is there also links or tools we can use for iPads, the mobile devices?
Yeah, there are for both Navisworks and for viewing CAD files, and we can provide some links to those as well.
Okay. Well, I think that's all great information. We appreciate you coming. We'll probably do some more stuff on VDC. We want to try and push it. This is where the future's going, and we want everybody to take advantage of the tools and take advantage of having Travis on our team.
Absolutely. I mean,
So,
just what you went over today and following the example that you provided to us at the company meeting, I mean, that's what a huge resource that we have in Travis, and we just need to embrace it and use it where it makes sense.
yeah. Well, that concludes episode 5 of the Parrish IT podcast, VDC Services.
Good stuff. Good stuff. As always, don't forget to hit like, thumbs up, share it, tell us what you think, and if you've got anything you'd like for us to cover, in particular, just shoot us an email. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll see what we come up with. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.